Aquaproof 7-in-1, high-performing waterproofing paint, Nippon Paint, the coatings expert.
Now, with respect to the outcome of the discussions we have had with the authorities, I'm pleased to share with you that we have reached a staff-level agreement on the economic policies to conclude the second review of the 4-year EFF-supported program.
The International Monetary Fund said yesterday a staff-level agreement on economic policies to conclude the second review of the 4-year EFF-supported program has been reached, with Sri Lanka enhancing the prospect to receive a fresh $337 million in financing, bringing the total to $1 billion since March last year.
කලින් දාපු ඔයිල් එක ජෙනුයින් ජපාන් කිව්වට ජෙනුයින් නේ.
නිකන් කරදර වෙන්නේ නැතුව මං වගේ ටොයෝටා ඔයිල්ම දාගන්නකෝ.
Genuine Japan Motor Oil නම් Toyota Genuine Motor Oil විතරමයි.
හරියට බලලා ටොයෝටා ජෙනුයින් මෝටර් ඔයිල්ම දාගන්න.
Completion of the review by the IMF's Executive Board requires the implementation by the authorities of prior actions, and the completion of Financing Assurances Review, which will focus on confirming multilateral partners' committed financing contributions and whether adequate progress has been made with the debt restructuring to give confidence that the restructuring will be concluded in a timely manner and in line with the program's debt targets. IMF staff, during their visit, which began on the 6th of March, also held the 2024 Article 4 consultation with Sri Lanka. The EFF entails $3 billion support. It said Sri Lanka's macroeconomic policy reforms are starting to bear fruit.
For the second review of the 4-year EFF-supported program and the 2024 Article 4 consultation. We had productive discussions during these 2 weeks with a broad spectrum of stakeholders in the country. And in addition to meeting the authorities, we've been able to meet members of the civil society, think tanks, and a broad spectrum of stakeholders. Now, with respect to the outcome of the discussions we have had with the authorities, I'm pleased to share with you that we have reached a staff-level agreement on the economic policies to conclude the second review of the 4-year EFF-supported program. I would like to highlight that the staff-level agreement is subject to the approval of IMF management and the IMF Executive Board in the period ahead. Completion of the review by the IMF Executive Board requires 1. the implementation by the authorities of prior actions, and 2, the completion of financing assurances confirming multilateral partners' financing contributions and assessing adequate progress with the debt restructuring. Upon completion of the Executive Board review, Sri Lanka would have access to about $330 million, bringing the total IMF financial support under the program, under the arrangement, to approximately $1 billion after 3 disbursements. So now let me turn to the progress the authorities have made with the reform agenda that led to staff-level agreement. The authorities are making good progress in implementing the ambitious reform agenda under the EFF with commendable outcomes, including rapid disinflation, robust reserve accumulation, and initial signs of economic growth while preserving the stability of the financial system. Public finances have strengthened following substantial fiscal reforms. Program performance overall was strong, with all quantitative performance criteria and indicative targets for end December 2023 met, except for the indicative target on social spending. Most structural benchmarks due before the end of February were either met or implemented with delay. Reforms in some areas are still ongoing. The economic situation is gradually improving. Growth turned positive after 6 consecutive quarters of contraction, registering 1.6% and 4.5% year-on-year in the third and fourth quarter of 2023, respectively. And moreover, high-frequency economic indicators point to a continued pickup in manufacturing, construction, and services. Inflation has come down from a peak of 70% in September 2022 to 5.9% in February of 2024, and gross official reserves increased to $4.5 billion at end February, with sizable foreign exchange purchases by the central bank. Sustaining the reform momentum going forward is critical, is absolutely critical to put the economy on a path towards lasting recovery and stable and inclusive economic growth. We welcome the authorities' commitment to fiscal reforms. Continued progress towards the introduction of the property tax is critical, together with revenue measures to meet the revenue mobilization goals in 2025 and beyond. Revenue administration and anti-corruption efforts to boost tax collections are also key. Maintaining cost recovery in fuel and electricity pricing will help minimize fiscal risks arising from state-owned enterprises. Now, while inflation has decelerated faster than expected, continued monitoring is warranted to help anchor inflationary pressures and support macroeconomic stability. Against ongoing external uncertainty, it remains important to continue to rebuild external buffers through strong reserves accumulation. Sri Lanka's agreements in principle with the Official Creditor Committee and Export-Import Bank of China on debt treatments consistent with program parameters were important milestones, putting Sri Lanka's debt on the path towards sustainability. The critical next steps are to finalize the agreements with the official creditors and reach agreements in principle with the main external private creditors in line with program parameters in a timely manner. This should help restore Sri Lanka's debt sustainability over the medium term. The authorities recently published an action plan to implement the key recommendations of the governance diagnostic report, and this is a very welcome step. Sustained efforts to implement these reforms will be essential for addressing corruption risks, rebuilding economic confidence, and making growth more robust and inclusive. We also took the opportunity of being here to explore Sri Lanka outside of Colombo and get a sense of the pulse of the nation. During our visit, the team went to Nurayelia and met with tea plantation workers, where we learned firsthand about some of the challenges that Sri Lanka's most vulnerable face. Continued efforts to improve targeting, adequacy, and coverage of social safety nets, particularly Aswisuma, remain critical to protect the poor and vulnerable. I would like to thank the authorities and all our counterparts for the very warm welcome we have received here in Sri Lanka and the excellent collaboration.
For more latest news, subscribe to FTTV.